Hey now, it's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. The Iron Sheik, a wrestler fans couldn't help but despise during his time in the ring, but one who became a popular personality thanks to social media. Sit back as we take a trip down memory lane and examine the Iron Sheik's 10 greatest moments. Number 10. One Last Moment of Glory, the Gimmick Battle Royal. When the WWE held its Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania X7, fans were delighted to see some of the superstars of yesteryear. However, few would have thought that there would be such a wild reaction for the Iron Sheik. Not only did the once-cheered wrestler get his fair share of cheers, he won the event, eliminating Hillbilly Jim to claim the winner's purse. Given the way the WWE jobs its legends, this was actually a decent send-off for the Iron Sheik, as he had one last moment of glory amongst his fellow superstars. Number 9. Getting easy money in WCW. Many wrestling fans have forgotten that the Iron Sheik wrestled in World Championship Wrestling during the late 80s, and apparently WCW management forgot as well. Although the Sheik's time there was largely uneventful, he did make out okay for himself as his contract was renewed, simply because WCW failed to file the proper paperwork. As noted by the Sportster's column Ultimus, WCW accidentally allowed Sheik's initial one-year contract to roll over, extending it despite the fact he'd been rarely used in months. The Sheik continued collecting paychecks, working a relatively relaxed schedule that saw him largely booked at house shows. Way to stick it to the man, Sheiky baby. Number 8. Social media sensation. The Iron Sheik had a fantastic career as a wrestler, but no mention of his career is complete without mentioning how he enjoyed a second act as a social media personality and all-around pop culture sensation. The Iron Sheik tore up Twitter, firing off obscenities like he was shooting a machine gun. Appearances on talk radio shows such as The Howard Stern Show only increased the Sheik's popularity, as he promised to make wrestlers humble and break their backs. While critics might argue the Sheik devolved into self-parody, they're missing the point. The Iron Sheik and his managers knew exactly what they were doing in creating a one-man reality show that brought laughs to his existing fan base and introduced the Sheik to a new generation of fans. Number 7. Perfecting his persona. Like many wrestlers, Hussein Khosrow Ali Vaziri went through several personas before he found a winning formula. While it might seem hard to believe, Vaziri once worked as a babyface during his early years, relying on his background as a talented amateur wrestler and assistant coach for the American Olympic Wrestling Team. However, there was more to do than meander in the mid-card, and according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter's Dave Meltzer, AWA promoter Vern Gagne's wife Mary suggested that the future Sheik play a heel. The gifted star shaved his head and crafted a new persona, relying on wrestling's trope of foreign heels who hate America and everything it stands for. Vaziri became the Iron Sheik in the Great Hussein Arab. The Iron Sheik certainly wasn't the first Middle Eastern heel, and at the time there was a much better known heel wrestler, the Sheik, who was known for his hardcore wrestling style. In fact, wrestling lore has it that some promoters had Vaziri use the name Hussein Arab to avoid seeming like an infringement on the Sheik's persona and fame. Vaziri set about to stand out, and stand out he did when he adopted two gimmicks. The first was his trademark Persian wrestling boots with the curled toes, an idea reportedly suggested to him by Jimmy Superfly Snuka. The curled toes looked like they could take an opponent's eye out, but the real value was in how the Sheik loaded them up, transforming them into an instrument of blunt force trauma. The second gimmick was his Persian exercise clubs, aka Indian clubs, which he used to demonstrate his great strength and balance. As we'll see, these two gimmicks would help the Iron Sheik create many memorable moments. Number 6. The Battle of the Boob. Hussein Arab had some fantastic programs in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, aka Jim Crockett Promotions, including one where he battled Jumping Jim Brunzell, not only over the Mid-Atlantic Championship, but over one of his own boots. The great Hussein Arab's habit of clobbering opponents with a loaded boot did not go unnoticed by wrestlers, especially those who were on the receiving end of his fearsome footwear. Fans also complained, but what could they do? In the case of babyface Jumping Jim Brunzell, he made an executive decision and captured one of Hussein's boots, vowing to win the other boot and the Mid-Atlantic Championship. Unfortunately, Brunzell came up short in both departments, but it made for an exciting storyline along the way. Number 5. Whipping Blackjack Mulligan. Blackjack Mulligan was wrestling's version of John Wayne, a rough-and-tumble cowboy who brooked no nonsense. especially from heels who disrespected the good old US of A. When the Iron Sheik arrived in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Mulligan quickly tired of the Sheik trash-talking him and running down America. At the time, the Sheik and his manager, Gene Anderson, offered $1,000 cold cash to anyone who could work the Persian clubs. Mulligan called out the heels and they showed up, with Mulligan telling the Sheik to demonstrate the exercise. The Iranian wrestler did so with ease, with manager Gene Anderson boasting that his charge did the exercise 500 times every morning. Mulligan went to try his hand at it, but the Sheik was a bit too close for comfort, so Mulligan told him to back up. The Iron Sheik boasted that no American, Canadian, or Russian, or European could do the exercise, and he began speaking in Farsi, angering Mulligan further. However, Mulligan lifted the clubs and was on his way to collecting the grand. That is, until the Sheik drove Anderson's cane into Blackjack's belly. The Sheik began whipping Mulligan with the belt, until the Texan finally got back to his feet. Mulligan said he wouldn't give the Sheik the satisfaction of going to the hospital. He was tired of a nothing country like Iran telling the United States what to do, and he finally had his chance to wipe out an Iranian in the ring. Mulligan and the Iron Sheik fought for the next several weeks in every conceivable type of match, including tag team matches. Things heated up until Mulligan defeated the Sheik in a steel cage match. Just to cast aside any doubt that it was a fluke, Mulligan defeated the Iron Sheik in Texas street fights and Texas death matches. Number 4. Maple Leaf Mayhem. Canada's Maple Leaf Wrestling was a popular and successful territory for decades. It often featured wrestlers from Jim Crockett Promotions, including Hussein Arab, who challenged for the promotion's Canadian Heavyweight Championship. As Canadian fans found out, the Hussein Arab's disdain extended to Canadian as well as American fans, which made fans want to see him get his comeuppance all the more. Promoter Frank Tunney used Hussein Arab's heat to sell tickets by having him defeat hometown hero Dewey Robertson for the Canadian Heavyweight Championship. This was followed by an even hotter program where former Canadian football player Angelo King Kong Mosca waged a bloody war over the belt. The title changed hands between the two, culminating in an intense steel cage match where Mosca regained the belt, with both men knowing they'd been in the fight of their lives. Number 3. Tag Team Gold at WrestleMania. By 1985, the Iron Sheik had moved into tag team competition, allying with the Soviet Union's own Nikolai Volkov in a tough tag team managed by Freddie Blassie. WWF fans had more reasons than ever to boo the Iron Sheik, as he and his tag team partner combined their attacks on the United States and its wrestlers. Patriotism was going strong, so it only made sense for the WWF to book the Sheik and Volkov against popular babyfaces Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo, aka the US Express. Windham and Rotundo were the all-American babyfaces as well as the WWF Tag Team Champions, so fans were thrilled when the WWF booked a title match at the first ever WrestleMania, hoping to see the US Express beat some respect in their anti-American opponents. What they got instead was a heartbreaking loss, as the Sheik and Volkov defeated the US Express for the belts, albeit with some help from Freddie Blassie's cane. This led to a series of rematches as the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov did everything in their power to keep the titles. Number 2. Winning the WWF Championship. The Iron Sheik's Persian clubs came in handy once again in 1983 when the Sheik and his manager Ayatollah Freddie Blassie challenged WWF champion Bob Backlund to prove he could master the clubs. Naturally, the Sheik used the opportunity to lay Backlund out, injuring the champion's shoulder in the process. This led to the unthinkable when the Iron Sheik defeated Backlund on December 26, 1983 in Madison Square Garden, winning the WWF Championship. Backlund did his best, despite his injured shoulder, but once the Sheik locked in his submission hold with camel clutch, there was no escape. Backlund's manager Arnold Skolin knew the champ would never say I quit. Rather than seeing Backlund permanently injured, Skolin threw in the towel, forfeiting the match and the belt. Stunned fans had to deal with the Sheik not only holding the WWF's top prize, but mocking American fans. The Sheik's win, of course, was just a transition for the WWF to put the belt on Hulk Hogan, who defeated the Iron Sheik in the Garden in January 1984, beginning Hulkamania in the WWF. Number 1. Thou Shalt Not Pass. While winning a world championship is an impressive feat, especially during a time when world titles rarely change hands, the Iron Sheik's war with Sergeant Slaughter is arguably the greatest moment of the Sheik's career. In early 1984, the Iron Sheik was more hated than ever, even after dropping the WWF Championship. At the time, Sergeant Slaughter who portrayed a sadistic Marine drill instructor turned equally sadistic wrestler, was in the WWF, enjoying a run as a heel. However, that was about to change. Sarge was making his way to the ring. The Iron Sheik was making his way back after making short work with a preliminary wrestler. Neither man budged, and it looked like it might come to blows until the Sheik's manager, Freddie Blassie, stepped in, providing an impromptu match, but making it clear this showdown was just a hint of things to come. The following week saw a repeat, this time with WWF officials separating the two men. A match was scheduled for the next week. By now, Slaughter was a babyface and a prime target for the Sheik to take him out. The Iron Sheik waylaid Slaughter before the bell, laying him out and whipping him with a belt until the Sarge regained his bearings, driving the Sheik away. On April 23, 1984, the two met in a wild brawl in Madison Square Garden, where Slaughter was disqualified after taking off his combat boot and beating the Sheik senseless with it. Slaughter then attacked the Sheik while he was being interviewed backstage. Next month's match in the Garden was even wilder, with both men brawling to a double disqualification after shoving the referee. Wrestlers and officials struggled to pull the two foes apart. It was no easy task. This culminated in a boot camp match at Madison Square Garden on June 16, 1984. Both men showed no mercy as they waged a brutal battle. Slaughter finally won after taking off one of the Iron Sheik's boots and beating him senseless with it. This white-hot feud would be repeated in arenas across the country, elevating the Iron Sheik's career even further. What are your favorite memories from the Iron Sheik's career? Did we miss any? Share your thoughts in the comment section and let us know if there's any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.